Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff and welcome to Tool Review Day, and we're looking at this, the Advanced Series GHAD 39 from Gaahleri. This is one of their entry-level airbrushes. Yes, hello, welcome to Tool Review Day here at Model Kit Stuff, and we're looking at this new airbrush. Now, this is one of two airbrushes I'm going to be reviewing in the next couple of weeks from Gaahleri. This is their entry-level one, and then later we'll be looking at a more advanced one, and that's going to then lead into a series of airbrushing tutorials taking you from complete novice to competent airbrushing, and this is one of the airbrushes we'll be featuring in the early part of that video series. They're a Chinese company, and what they've basically done is they've taken all the best ideas from some of the leading brands and put some of their own innovation into that and come up with a product that is very competitive to other brands out there. And so that was really interesting to me. I'm always interested in companies that are looking to make the hobby more affordable and more accessible to others. And there are certainly people I know that don't airbrush for a whole variety of reasons. Quite often it's limitations in where they do their modeling, which they think prevents them from airbrushing. Sometimes it's fear of the complexity of airbrushing, and sometimes it's purely the cost. And that's what interested me. This company seemed to be challenging some of the things that sometimes put people off airbrushing. So I've reached out to them, said I'd like to review their tools, and they've very graciously given me two airbrushes to review, which cover the wide spectrum of modelling requirements. So, as I said, this is their entry-level one, and I'm going to be, from time to time in this video, comparing it with one of the top brands. So this is an Iwata Eclipse. This is one of their entry-level airbrushes. This is a side feed, whereas this is a gravity feed, but that's the only difference really. So we'll be having a look at this, comparing them and seeing how this stands up to one of the leading brands. I mean, this is a brand that many modelers recommend, many modelers use, and that I've used this particular brush for years. I've had quite a few airbrushes over the years. I've been using an airbrush since the late 1980s. So I've had a number of brands, from top brands all the way down to the very, very cheap sort of £20–25 airbrushes that you can pick up on Amazon and eBay, the non-branded ones. So I have a wide experience. So I'll be able to know if this is going to stand up to what we require. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the airbrush. So, this came to me as you see it, but inside a cardboard shipper, so it was well packaged. And like I say, even though this says advanced, it is aimed at entry level. And what we can see here is we've got a dual action airbrush, so that means the trigger will go on and off, and also we've got some regulation. We can talk about that in a minute. Has an innovative 8 micro air channel 8 Mac system. We'll explain that when we get to it. A drop-in self-centering structure, a 14 ounce and a 1/4 ounce and 1/2 ounce 2 replaceable smooth cups. So we've got 2 paint cups and a 0.35mm, which is a bit of an unusual size, and a 0.5mm needle. So you've got 2 needles. Now, generally, as a rule, my advice with needles is that most modelers will move between a range of a 0.2 and a 0.5 needle. That covers almost everything a modeler would ever want to do, no matter what scale they build. And if you're just buying one brush, I would always recommend that you aim at a 0.3 needle. If you're just going to have one brush with one needle, a 0.3 needle is your sort of aim point. It's that middle road. You'll be able to do very fine stuff, and you'll also be able to do fairly wide spray patterns as well. So the 0.35 is a little bit of an unusual size. You usually find 0.3, but no matter, that 0.3 gets us right bang in the middle there where we want to be, but we've also got the advantage of a 0.5. So if, like me, you do large builds from time to time, like a 1/200 ship hull, a 0.5 needle is really going to help you with that big hull painting task, or a large 132 aircraft painting all those big wing expanses. You want to be able to put the paint down quickly and smoothly, and that 0.5 needle will help you with that. So as we look on the side of the box here, it tells us that it covers fine to medium, but I would say that you'll be able to do some detail work and some wider work. So I think actually with the needles you've got, you'll be able to go a bit beyond those ranges, but that's what they're recommending the needle will do. It was sealed. I've cut the seal. And on this side, we've got contact details for the company. So the brand is Gaahleri, but they're part of the Ningbo Gale Network Technology Company. Now, Ningbo is a city in China, so that's where they're based. So yeah, and that's it. So we've got this sleeve which we can remove. And then we're presented with a nice black cardboard box, which is not dissimilar to how companies like Iwata present their boxes. In fact, yeah, it's almost the same. Other than this box feels thicker. Yeah, it's less flimsy than the Iwata box. So when we open it up, we've got a couple of little cutouts for your fingers, so it's easy to open. Okay, so we've got inside the lid, we've got a breakdown of all the parts. So yeah, so they've pasted that in the inside, so you can see all the parts, where they are and where they fit. But we will strip this down in a minute anyway and give you an idea of what that looks like. And then we've got a little leaflet. Dear customer, each Gaahleri airbrush undergoes rigorous spray testing before leaving the factory. There might be minor paint residue present. We apologise for any inconvenience this causes. So they test every single airbrush before they say, okay, that's ready to go to the customer. That's perfect. If the product indeed has an issue, no need to return it. Just contact us, confirm the problem, and we'll arrange a reshipment for you. Wow. So that is a statement of a bold statement to say, actually, we believe in this product. And as they're testing it, they're not expecting any issues at all. So, okay, let's put that to one side. The next thing we have is, a quick start guide. So it's showing you where to put your air in. It's demonstrating adding it to a quick disconnect system, which it points out are sold separately, which is the normal way. Showing you how to put paint in. Now, it actually even shows you how to put the paint in without using a cup, which is something I've talked about a bit on the channel. Then we've got starting airbrush, air down, pull back for paint. and then you've got a fluid control knob. Brilliant. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. Very basic. Spray patterns. If you're getting spatter, it's too thick. If you're getting this nice little smooth pattern with a dusty edge, then that's perfect. And if you're getting spider legs, then it's too thin. And it tells you what to do. Dilute the paint, make the paint thinner, or reduce the air pressure, or add undiluted paint and make it thicker. So lots of people have problems with airbrush and assume it's something with the airbrush, and 9 times out of 10, probably 9.9 times out of 10, it's the user, not the airbrush. Then we've got a Q&A section. How to switch colour. Pour out the rest of the paint. Put several drops of airbrush cleaner into the cup. Block off the air cap with your finger, press down and level back. So they're actually advocating that system that other companies say you shouldn't do, and I always say you shouldn't do. Yeah, interesting. Interesting that they're doing that. Release the airbrush cleaner. Repeat steps 2 to 4. Okay. Clean the air cap and nozzle with airbrush cleaner. Okay, after you've finished, I guess. Well, we'll talk about that when we do our tutorials on airbrushing. Then we've got instructions there for large particles of paint. Use airbrush cleaner to clean inside the cap. Remove the air cap by rotating clockwise. These are really good basic instructions. When air reverse flow into the cup, okay, tighten the nozzle cap. Yeah, so if you get, but this is basically dealing with some issues you might get. So if you're getting bubbles in your cup, usually it's because your nozzle is not on tight enough, and you've got air coming in and interrupting. So it says please tighten your cap. Unable to spray, so check that your needle is tightened in place properly, and that the needle's moving. Yeah, okay. And when the main lever cannot be pulled backwards, check you've not got the lock on. Deep cleaning, how to strip it and clean the needle, removing the air, cleaning inside the brush. Use a cleaning needle to clean the dry paint inside the nozzle. Yeah, put the nozzle cap back together, and how to put it back together. Yeah, including putting the needle chucking guide back in as well, which is something that catches people out. And yeah, that's really handy. You've got all the basics there. I mean, if you're a complete novice, that gets you off the ground. So I love that. I've not seen that with any of the airbrushes I've ever bought, a sort of a very basic user guide. But in addition to that, if you go onto their YouTube channel, they've got loads and loads of tutorials on how to do these things, which makes it even better. So the customer support here is already feeling really good. Right, next thing we've got a bag, with some spare seals in. So that's brilliant, because usually you pay quite a bit of money for some seals. So that's worth thinking about, because you've got 2 changes of seals there. And I mean, if you look after your brush and maintain it, you shouldn't need to change seals very often. But when you do, it can be quite expensive, and also you're often out of action, because it's not something you tend to keep or buy until you need them, and then you've got to wait for them to be delivered. So straight away, we've got an advantage here with this brush, that we've got some seals. So I can put a set of seals in, and then if I feel the need, I can go and buy a backup set. So that's fantastic. Yeah, I really like that. Then we've got a little bit of foam, and we're going to take that out, and then we've got the contents of our box all in foam to keep it there. So if you want to use this box for storing your airbrush, you've got a good way of doing that. It's a nice, like I say, a nice sturdy box, and everything fits in there nicely. The only drawback I'll say is if you don't want to keep the box, you then need to copy these instructions. So take a photograph or something like that, so you've got these as a reference, particularly when you first get the brush, and you might want to, when you're doing strip downs, you might want to have a look at it a few times. But in the main, once you've stripped the brush a couple of times, you don't really need them. But it's always good if something goes wrong and you need to get into an area that you usually don't strip down, such as this area or this area here. It's good to have those instructions. So yeah, if you don't want to keep the box, do take a photograph of that. It would perhaps be nice if that was on a separate sheet, but anyway, you know, that's a minor thing, isn't it? So let's put the lid to one side. So what have we got? We've got the airbrush in there. We've got 2 paint pots. We've got some lube, and we've got our separate needle. This says 0.5mm on it. So we know that we've got the 3.25 in there, and then we've got the nozzle assembly that accompanies the 0.5 blade. Now obviously when you take out the needle that's in the brush, you want to put it in there for safekeeping. So you could over time forget what needle you've got in there, so don't rely on what it says on there. You'll be able to tell. We'll compare the needles earlier so you can see how you can tell which one you've got. Now the first thing I've spotted, well actually there's 2 things I've spotted. So the first one is we've got a protective cover over the protective cover. So we've got a needle guard on here, but we've also got a protective cover over the top. I've never seen that before either, and that's great. That's keeping all the dust away from your needle and making sure that nothing happens to that needle. Even though there's a guard on, you've still got access to it until you put that on. So I love that. That's a real nice idea. But this is the thing I love. I'm going to take this off. That is your male part of your quick connect. So when you buy a quick connect, let me just show you. If I take my airbrush off this, so that's a quick connect. This one happens to be built into the airline, but often you buy them separately and connect them to your airline. They come like this, and you buy the male part separately, and the reason for that is you've got no way of knowing how many airlines and how many airbrushes somebody's got, so you need one of these on each airbrush so that you can quickly change. And that fits straight onto my airline, and that's brilliant because I've never bought an airbrush where that was included. I've always bought one of these with my airbrush. In fact, I have a couple spare now because I've bought a couple of airbrushes and then got rid of them because they were not very good. So the fact that this comes with it on is yet again another cost saving. So I'm really impressed with that. Let's make sure that's finger tight only, that's all we need. So as I look at the airbrush, we've got a cutout there which does 2 things. It gives you access to the chucking nut here, but it also takes out material which helps balance the airbrush. In my hand it feels nicely weighted. It doesn't feel like it's heavy in my hand. It feels really quite comfortable actually. So yeah, so like I say, the cutout does both of those things, but it allows you to loosen this and tighten this if you want. The other thing that I'm noticing straight away is we've got this on the end, and this here is a fluid control knob, and what it basically does, if I pull that out, allows me to pull my trigger all the way back. Now if I'm doing something more delicate like a camouflage pattern on a freehand and I want to control that spray, then I can screw that in and it locks the travel and stops me taking the airbrush all the way back. I don't know if you can see, but there is the trigger isn't going the full distance back that it can do. So that's what that does. It allows you to restrict the travel of the trigger, therefore restrict how much paint you're going out. And if you're doing something where you need constant flow, it's a really handy way of making sure that you don't do that sudden jerk backwards and go with your paint, which, believe me, happens. It's happened to me more times than you can remember. And again, on this one, you don't have that at all. So you're relying on your finger not getting tired. So what happens is, after a while, your finger gets a little bit tired, and you feel like you need to stretch it out, and you sort of automatically do it, and you sort of move it back or move it forward, and you interrupt your paint flow. So having this nut on just helps you not put too much paint down. So that is a feature that you don't usually get on an entry-level brush, and you can obviously, but we've got one on our hands. But yeah, so from a technical point of view, this brush gives you everything that you need for an entry-level brush. The travel is nice and short. You don't want to be pressing basically the longer the travel, the more pressure you're putting on your finger, and the more quickly your finger's going to get tired. Resistance is fairly good. You want a little bit of resistance so that you're having to put a little bit of pressure on to control the air pressure. So they've got to get the balance right between enough travel to control airflow, and not too much travel that you're getting a tired finger. So that's not too bad. And if I compare that to the Iwata, I would say it's about the same. Okay, so there we go. And then we've got the standard nozzle protection. In fact, they look almost the same, don't they? Although this one's slightly longer, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Right, okay, so let's have a look at the paint cups now. So we got 2 paint cups in our pack, 1 and 2, and I just want to compare these to another paint cup brand. So this is the largest paint cup I've got. This is the gravity feed paint cup that came with my Hadder and Steenback airbrush. So that's the larger one, and if I just take this off, that's my smaller one. So those are the 2 sort of sizes of cups I'm familiar with using. And I want to compare the air cups because I want to talk about something that I think is quite a nice feature on this. So both of these air cups come with a lid, and that's usual. And the idea is you put the lid on so that when you're spraying paint, you don't accidentally spill it anywhere. Yeah. Quite often I don't use the lids, but I do from time to time, because it's just an extra thing to clean, to be honest. But that's by the by. So they just pop in, they sort of clip in. They're fairly loose. They will quite easily fall out. Here we've got lids, and again, they are just pop on, pop off. There's our lid. I'll take the lid off this one as well. So the lids are less likely to fall off because they are a slightly tighter fit. So when I look at the smoothness inside, the smoother your cup, the easier it is to clean. And I compare it to these, I would say that these are ever so slightly coarser. Now on some of their other brushes, they do like a mirror finish, which is much smoother than this, I've got to say. But this isn't bad. It doesn't feel rough under my fingers, whereas this one does a little bit actually, even though it doesn't look it. But you can see the machining witnesses in both of them. Yeah, we're not going to have any problems, but I often have a problem cleaning this cup. And the reason is, it's difficult to get my finger in and clean the paint out. You know, you have to get in with a cotton bud, and sometimes you want to get in and scrub. Sometimes you want to get in and get your fingernail in, you know, and just scrape the paint out, especially if you're using acrylics that dry so fast. But this is the smallest cup I've got with this airbrush, and that is not a problem to clean. But also, look at the shape of it. Compare it to the shape of that one. So this one has the edges flaring. It's the same, but not quite as acute on this. You've got a bowl shape and then the edges come in. Well, those edges coming in makes it more difficult to clean your cup, which exacerbates the issue with this. Whereas this has got a nice straight edge, so it's a lot easier to clean. So actually, it's a nice cup to clean. So we've got a very large one. The large one is larger than what I'm used to by quite a considerable amount. So if I'm doing a big job, again, like a ship's hull, I've got loads of capacity in there, which means I've got less interruptions. So that's perfect. And then I've got on this smaller one, I can put a small amount in there, you know, the amount I might put in there, or a few drops, and I'm not going to have to think, oh, do I want to use the cup because it's on? I've then got to the difficulty of cleaning it. This will be nice and easy to clean. So let's see how these attach on. I'm just going to move those out of the way. So I put my finger in because that just centers it, so that you don't cross thread the screw. There, and that goes in nice and easy. There, that looks nice actually, doesn't it? And yeah, it's not in the way of my finger. Let's try the larger one. Again, put my finger in. You can sort of feel when it's flat. So when you've got it at an angle, it sort of moves, and as soon as you've got the thread lined up, there you go, it stops moving. And again, I've got space for my finger. So that's always a concern when you've got a big paint cup on, is it going to get in the way? But no, they've thought about that. It's been designed nicely. So yeah, okay. So from a material point of view, the cups don't feel quite as, I mean, that's a heavy cup compared to that, but I mean, obviously it is bigger. I mean, that's a similar size. Weight's about the same, I guess. So the cup material, I can't say that I can see any real tangible difference. I can on the lids. The lids are thinner. I was just going to check that. The caps appear to be the same size. So that's another feature. That's another thing that's going to save them cost as well, because the openings of their cups are the same. So the caps are interchangeable. So their manufacturing process is making the same cap, which reduce your costs. The longer your production run, the cheaper it is. Whereas we're making bespoke things for different cups on other brands, and that ups your cost. Now you pay for that. So another great idea from Gaahleri is standardization. Okay, right. So we've looked at the paint cups. Let's have a look at how quick and easy it is to change a needle. Now, I'm not going to look at the instructions. I'm going to use my knowledge of airbrushes. They all pretty much work on the same basis. Having looked at the briefly at the instructions, I can see that the lever guide is separate. So I'm just going to grab a pair of tweezers because I'm going to need that. Okay, so we want to strip the needle. So first thing I'm going to do is remove the paint guard. That exposes my needle. I'm then going to pull the trigger back. That retracts the needle. I can't get to that needle now. And we'll put that over to one side. Then we take off the nozzle. Now, these should all be finger tight. So if it's ever tighter than finger tight, you've got a problem. You don't want to over tighten it. So if I just retract that and we carefully put that down, you can see inside here we've got the little actual nozzle. It'll have a name. I think the name's nozzle. So the inner part of the nozzle, and I should be able to lift that out. Okay, so if you remember when we were talking on the box, it talked about, let me find what it said exactly. Innovative 8 micro air channel. So what they're talking about is these little grooves here. So you can see those little grooves around the outside. So you don't get those on other airbrushes. Let me show you. Actually, you can. Just correct myself. You can get them on other airbrushes, but definitely not on an entry-level airbrush. Not in a million years. So if we take this nozzle out, you can see it's just totally smooth. And if I do the same with, this is my top of the range Infinity CR Plus. If I take the nozzle off there, you can see it's totally smooth. So why do we have 8 little grooves in there? Well, it improves your airflow and it gives you better, more consistent spray patterns. So this little bit of your airbrush here is going to make a significant difference to how well your paint goes down. And they've put that in an entry-level airbrush. All right, so just take that in for a minute. You've got this, they've designed this, which you usually see in really expensive airbrushes, and plot that into an entry-level airbrush. So you will get a finer, more consistent spray pattern because of those little grooves in there. So that is a beautiful thing they've done. Really nice. So just gently push that back into place. Okay, so that's fallen out anyway. So yeah, so we want to carry on stripping the needle. So I'm now going to take off the handle. So that just unscrews. So yeah, standard approach. Now to remove the needle only, we loosen the needle chucking, which is that there. Basically that clamps down onto your needle. This isn't an airbrush tutorial, so I won't labour on it, and I should be able to now pull my airbrush backwards out if I want. Yep, but I'm actually going to push it forward. So good practice not to drag your needle backwards out of the device, because when you've got paint on it, you drag paint through your airbrush. So there you go. Now, I had a bit of resistance when I was pulling it out. That's good. That means that this is self-centering. So when I put the needle back in, it's going to perfectly align with the nozzle, and we're not going to get any misalignment, which you can get in some airbrushes, which risks damaging the tip of your needle. So there you go. I have removed my needle. So I now want to put in the 0.5 needle. So we're going to want the new nozzle. So we'll take that nozzle out, and just for completeness, we'll put that in there so we don't lose it. There you go. You've got a nice storage container for that, and that can go back in your box for safekeeping. Right, and we're going to take out the rubber bung. There we go. And drop the needle out backwards. You can see that even though it's in a protective case, they have also put it in a protective case. So we'll take that off. Right, now I said you'd be able to tell the difference between the needles. And I've got to be honest, you can, but you need to look at it. So the 0.3 needle has a thinner taper. So you can see there's a difference, but you've got to look at it. So there's no markings or anything on there. So on some brands, take this one for example, some brands put a marking on the end of the needle, which helps you identify what needle you've got. It's just a quicker way of doing it, but you can tell which one's which. So you're not really going to get them mixed up. So I know that's my 0.2, and we're going to put the needle protector on, which is nice. Don't push it on too hard, just gently put it on, but I can see how far up the needle is actually in there. And then we'll plop that back in there for safekeeping, and again that goes nicely in your box, so everything's nice, safe and secure. Right, so we've got the needle. Let's get this in. So I'm just going to make sure, because it's not been used before, I just want to make sure that the seal is pushed down and bedded in properly, which it wasn't, so always worth doing that. Now this washer here, the O-ring, this is made from a material that allows you to use solvent-based paints, and again, a lot of entry level hairbrushes don't have that, and it catches people out, and they can only use acrylic paints in, and then they go and put an enamel wash paint in it and basically ruin their washers, and then, like I said before, you're spending a lot of money and your airbrush is out of action. So this, you can use enamels, you can which is most washers and things are enamel based paints. You can obviously use enamel based paints in here, you can use lacquer paints in here, you can use acrylic paints in here, so it's a brilliant all-rounder. So what we're going to do is just make sure that's nicely embedded in, and screw that into place. Now again, another saving that not a lot of other manufacturers do is your needle guard is the same one we used on the other nozzle. So even though we've changed the nozzle for a different size, I can use the same guard. So that's a manufacturing cost saving for them, which means it's a cost saving for you. So I'm going to push the needle in from the back, and I can, right there, the needle's gone in that far and I'm getting some resistance, so that is the centering part of it. So as it's passing through the chucking guide, it's centering it, so then it's a bit stiffer to push. I can see the needle's pulled through the other end, and I lock that up and I put my handle back on. You just have to line the back end of your needle into this device at the back. So once you've got it in that hole, there you go. So that is as quick as anything. That's no more labour intensive than any other brush. It's a standard process for changing your needle, but you can see nice and easy, and I'm ready to go. I'm back in action again. So that's a quick needle change, and that's as much strip down as you do when changing colours and what have you. So let's have a look at a more complete strip down for cleaning and how long that might take. So I'm just going to put this back on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my phone and I'm going to time, strip down, change the needle, build it back up, and we'll see how long it takes to do that. So let's have a look. So we are going to set my stopwatch there. I'm going to get my needle out. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do remove the needle, do a full strip down as if we were cleaning it. Then we're going to reassemble it and put the 3.25 needle in and reassemble it. And we're going to see how long that takes. And that gives me an idea of how well thought through the airbrush is, and how well how smooth everything comes apart, goes together, how intuitive it is. I'm going to get my instructions and I'm going to turn that upside down so I can't see them. So I'm just going off my experience with airbrushes here to strip this down and change it out. So this should be a little bit of fun. Right, off we go. So going to take off my nozzle, like so, and take off my handle, like that, release and my needle is out. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to swap the needles in that process as well. And we need to swap the nozzle. So that's the nozzle that we want. That's the old nozzle. I didn't take the that's habit, because I have different ones for on different airbrushes, and you take the whole lot off and swap them all together. So I've lost some of that out. We'll sort that in a minute. Right, so then we're unscrewing this piece here. Chucking nuts come off, but that's okay. So usually there's quite a bit of unscrewing to do on these, quite a bit of travel within the airbrush. You can see that's loosening now, so we should be able to lift that out. Yep. Okay, and then we've also got that part as well. And this is the bit with your spring in, and you can see there's the spring. I can take that apart. Right, okay, so that is stripped out. That is as far stripped down as you would need if you were going to clean it. Yeah, so you can get in from the back, you can get in from the front, you can get into your cup, you can run water through it and through your tap. So that's a full strip down for cleaning. Okay, you don't ever really need to take this apart unless you've got a problem, and it's the same with this. You don't really need to take that apart unless you've got a problem. But you've got the instructions that shows you the parts if you need to. So that is fully stripped down, and that took me, come on phone, open up. That took me 1 minute 50 seconds, or 51 seconds if we're rounding up. So that's a quick time for a strip down. It'll take a fraction longer to put it together, and you'll see why in a minute. So let's put it together. First thing we need to do is build up the center section so that we can put the needle in. And this is going to be a little bit more tricky because this is a separate item, and on some devices, some airbrushes, they are built in. So on some of my airbrushes, this is on a little hinge, and on others it is separate. So it's quite a common practice to have it separate. And if I look at this Iwata, you can see that the design is identical. I'm just going to loosen the nut, and if I undo this just to show you how it compares, you can see it's on a hinge. But certainly when I had a Badger airbrush, it was a separate item. So yeah, that just, it makes it slightly easier for fitting, but I'm going to show you now. I mean, otherwise it's identical. It's the same basic process. I'm going to show you now how to go about doing it. So let's time it. So let's time it, and I'll talk you through the process as we go. Off we go. So we start by putting the trigger in. Now be mindful that the trigger has a little cutout at the back, which is for when you've got it pulled right back. So put the trigger in the right way round, and you just drop that into place. It can be a bit tricky because it's not the easiest thing to see, but you'll know when you get it because it'll sort of sink. Come on, there we go, that's in. That's in. So we leave that in position. Then with my tweezers, we put that in sideways, turn it around and rest it against it. There we go, and leave that like that. Now this is the sort of the tricky bit, because I've got a little cutouts on the side here which go into the rectangular shape on the inside of that piece that we've just put in. So that needs to be perfectly square. So the trick to doing this is to push it back with your fingers, like so, and hold the back end so that you've got it retained on the trigger, and then you can see the cutouts. I put those in perfectly aligned to the shape, and then I release it, and then that's already put it into that piece, and then I can screw it in. So I've showed you slowly. Once you're used to doing it, you can do it quicker. There we go. So that is now all in place. So it's not difficult to reassemble it at all. There we go. And then we can put our nozzle together like so, and screw that in. Needle guide can go in. The needle can go in even without the chucking nut being on. So that's on. Chucking nut goes over the top, tightens up. So that's now a usable airbrush. Pull the trigger back so the needle's out of the way, put the guard on, and then we put the back end of our airbrush on. There we go. So that was 4 minutes to reassemble and change the needle in the process, but I did show you some bits and pieces which slowed me down a little bit. So I reckon probably about 3 minutes. So that all felt really nice. As I put it together, there's no resistance on the threads. Everything is working smoothly, coming out, coming together. So no issues with this at all. So other than it's a slightly bit more heavy, and we might have an occasional extra cleaning process on the caps if you get paint on them, generally I think this has stood up fantastically well. Now let's talk about price. Okay. Let's summarize and talk about the cost. This Iwata Eclipse, its recommended retail price is $202 US dollars. 202.50 cents actually. That's its recommended retail price. So let's look at this. What do we get with our Gaahleri GHAD-39? Well, we get a brush that gives you lots of versatility. You've got 2 detachable cups, easy to clean because we're smooth on the inside. We get included an instruction manual that I've never seen given to any other airbrush. You get your male quick connect fitting, so if you've already got quick connects, you're ready to go. You get 2 needles, which gives you lots of versatility, both in terms of the amount of paint you're putting down in a job because of your paint cups and the 2 needles you've got. And you get the MAC innovation at the front, which gives you great atomization. So the unique nozzle design allows you to achieve better atomization effects without any effort whatsoever. The airbrush does it for you. Okay, so you get all of that, plus you get some lubrication, plus you get an additional protective cap that I've never seen anyone do. And the recommended retail price for this is $45.99. Got your attention? Keep listening because this is going to get better. If you use the link that I have put down in the comments underneath this, if you expand the description of this video, you will see a link. If you use that link, you'll ensure that you get the most up-to-date offers. And currently, as I record this, which is the 24th of February, so caveat, if you're watching this a few months' time, this might not be applicable, you currently get 35% off. That's $29.99. So that's between $5 and $10 more than a very basic, unbranded, entry-level, really poor airbrush, which will have poor seals and poor performance and won't have some of the stuff we've talked about. And in my book, it's actually better than the Water Eclipse. There is nothing that I would say, but the Water Eclipse is better, because there really isn't. You know, why would you pay $200 for that? Especially if you're about to buy your first ever airbrush. I cannot think off the top of my head of an airbrush that I would want to go and get instead of this. If I was coming to airbrushing for the first time, this is the brush I'd be going for, because it's got everything you want. Oh, I didn't even mention the fact that we've got a needle stop. You don't get that. I mean, you don't get the needle stop. You don't get that. You don't get two needles. You don't get paint cups that go up to that size. And you save a load of money. And, you know, with that extra money, you could buy yourself a compressor. You know, if you're starting out in the hobby and you want to do airbrushing for the first time, I strongly say, look at this airbrush. Now, I don't do recommendations because someone can come back to me and say, you recommended this and I don't like it. What I will say is, on a first look, there is no issues with this at all. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but does it actually work from a painting point of view? Let me just remind people, or maybe inform people if you don't know. There is very little difference between airbrushes in terms of how they operate. They all work on the same basic principle. So as long as your airbrush is clean and functioning properly, it will put paint down. So this I know will work. I know it will work. I also know it's going to work better than this because of that Mac innovation in the nozzle. So I know this is going to work. So even without having used it extensively, I can tell you this will work fine, because actually what's more important for the quality of your airflow is not just the little innovations like this, but it's actually your compressor. In many ways, your compressor purchase is more important than your airbrush purchase. So with all that being said, if you've never bought an airbrush before and you're thinking of getting your first airbrush, this is absolutely something you can consider. And if you've got one of those cheap ones and you want to upgrade and you're still building your confidence around airbrushing, you'd do a lot worse than get this, because it covers everything a modeler requires for their airbrushing needs in one package. And like I say, right now, $29.99. So yeah, use my link to make sure that you get to all the offers that are on. So this will take you straight to their website. When they agreed to send me these, I got them, I think it took 3 days. 3 days for me to receive them. So the shipping was great. Communication is great. There's chat and what have you on the website. So let me just show you on the website. So as you can see on the website, you've got help there. So if you need to chat with anybody, but see that there where it says rewards, you can collect rewards as you purchase, create yourself an account, and then if you want to buy more stuff, different nozzles, different needles, more paint cups, that sort of thing, you've got everything there. So this is what we've been looking at. It's a phenomenal entry-level brush, and look at the price. So follow my link, get you straight to this page if you're interested in purchasing it. Have a good look round and put one in the bag. So there you have it, an entry-level brush that actually blows the socks off its competition in so many ways. So yeah, the GHAD 39, yeah, it's lovely. It's a really nice proposition. Now, I'm going to be doing some entry-level tutorials on airbrushing, and this is the equipment we're going to use. You're also going to see me using this on some up-and-coming projects as I have a play with it, so stay tuned for more of this. If you found this video interesting and you're a novice or never tried an airbrush and you're thinking of getting into airbrushing, hit the subscribe button, because in a few weeks time we've got a load of stuff coming, from choosing your first airbrush to compressors and how to use an airbrush, things to look out for, tips, how to get you from never using an airbrush to feeling competent in airbrush, all coming up in a series of videos which will feature this and another airbrush, some other airbrushes as well. So thanks for looking in. Hope that was useful. If you're in the market for a better entry-level airbrush, or your first airbrush, go and take a look. Hit the link below and come back to me if you've got any questions in the comments. Right, thank you very much for looking in. You enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.